Please leave a message after the.
So I got one more clip of Stanley I'm going to play after we have our conversation. But first of all, you read the title of this episode, which Catface doesn't know right now. I'm just going to actually call it tongue-in-cheek, we wasn't true believers, because I was never a super fan of Stan Lee or even Marvel.
Oh, thank God, man. I thought it was just me. It was going to be like you gushing about this.
No. And I know it's a clickbait title for us that we're going to hate on Stan Lee. No, that's not it. But I don't feel the reverence that the diehards are feeling right now. And that doesn't mean I don't appreciate it, but I want to let you go, Catface. I want to hear about your thoughts and experiences on Stan Lee and Marvel, even though you've already kind of said that it wasn't as great or whatever. Let me hear your thoughts, and I'll go on mine as well.
Whoa, hold on a second, okay? Just because I'm not a fan of Stan Lee doesn't mean that I don't appreciate a lot of things about him, okay? So
Sure.
This is a guy, first of all, understand, this guy was 95 years old. He had a nice long run at things.
Definitely.
And when you have that long to accomplish stuff, I hope in your endeavors you managed to change a lot of things, change the game. And he did. You know, he was one of the first guys who created, actually, I think he set up in America the young troubled teen / young adult hero model, where, you know, their true identity is like a mess, and
Correct.
then like when they're a superhero, everything's great. And that's
Correct.
actually one of the first comics I read was Spider-Man. I have like a bunch of old Spider-Mans, like random issues, because my Japanese side of the family owns real estate. So in one of their strip malls, there was like a comic shop. So my grandpa just had like a bunch of comics that he randomly grabbed. So my love of Japanese comics actually came from American comics. I started out reading American comics, and Spider-Man was my favorite hero of all of them because, like Stan Lee was saying, it was somebody I could relate to. You know, when you talk about the other popular heroes, like 25-ish years ago when I was a little kid, they're like Batman, who's a super rich playboy, you know, and Superman, who, like, I did not know much about Superman, but the image I always had of him was like he was just a super perfect guy. And then, like, through all of your different reviews and breakdowns of different storylines of Superman and the character himself, I actually found out he sounded like a very interesting character, but I didn't know that as a little kid.
Sure.
So that was something that got me very interested in the graphic novel sort of story idea, you know, and that was Stan Lee. Outside of that, my personal experiences, you know, you look at comics were almost like a gimmick, you know, when he started out and for a long part of his career. And he really is the pioneer who forged the path from comics, which at large points in its history actually lost money for the people who were longtime, you know, artists and stuff. And he transformed it into like this huge mega financial boom. And he said it. He's the trendsetter. He's the guy who changed the game about getting comics from comic books to the screen and being successful about it. He showed how to build a universe with many, many characters. He did it. He did everything right, you know, and there's so much, even though I'm not like a huge fan of his or anything, I can still appreciate those things. As a casual person, even I can just sit down and watch random Marvel movies and still enjoy them a lot, you know?
Yeah. I agree completely. And here's the thing. I always saw him as the face of Marvel, but not really like, I would say a figurehead, because I know that he had a big hand in creating Spider-Man in particular, that character, but I knew he wasn't writing the stories. You know, throughout the years, you know, you got these different writers for Marvel, like Michael Brian Bendis, I believe his name is, all these other ones that have risen. But Stan Lee was always the figurehead, and he was like the face of Marvel, that cheerful, gentlemanly old face that kind of ushered you in. I think I appreciate the fact I might as well dive into how I felt about Stan Lee. I didn't know Stan Lee at all. Every time I saw him, I just thought this was the old man that likes comic books, who makes it easier for everyone to like comic books, because of this guy, if he likes comic books, this old man, and he started it, comic books are for everyone. And I appreciated that as a kind of a marketer, he made it so much more easier. I haven't really researched how much input he's had in the comics Creations, yeah, I heard he was an ideas guy. To be honest with you, the more I hear about him, I hear him being compared to like Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, the creators of Apple. Steve Jobs was the idea guy. Steve Wozniak was the guy who made the technical guy. And again, that's what people say about this guy as well. This is what people say about him, that he was the ideas guy, but he wasn't the stories guy. But without him, he did make the company as well. So we do have to give him the props for that. And, there's a lot of controversy with people saying that, he's getting way too much credit, that there's people behind him that make the source. But I understand most companies work like that anyway. It's like a band. There's a superstar, but there's another team, but there's always one that stands out. And I think in that role, Stan Lee really complimented the company of Marvel. Again, I'm not taking away from his actual, I don't really know how much he grafted in the actual creation, the story creation, but I think him as a marketer and as a brand, as a figurehead, I think he was a very powerful figure, and I think could consistently throughout the years, and I'm going to play a clip in a bit, even to his most recent years, he was always a big proponent for the company, and he served the company in his role, regardless of the controversy of he didn't do much. I honestly think he propelled the company in such a marketable way that it was such a big part of Marvel. I think it's just undeniable that Stan Lee, from the creation, from the marketing, is so important and so engrossing. But on a personal level, I just saw him more as a kind of a gentlemanly figurehead with a very quirky voice, a very nice catchphrase, and was someone that just made it easier to like Marvel because he was just a unique individual, a very quirky personality to kind of put in front of the company, because the old man's in front of all these young and crazy superheroes. I just thought it kind of made it even more fantastical. I think it's a great package, but I'm not a diehard Stan Lee fan. I know he did some other things. He had his own show and he did a lot of weird things. I know a couple of weird things I'll get into that, but I wasn't a true believer. I appreciate him. I really do. But like you said as well, he lived a long ass life. He reaped a lot of the benefits of this stuff. But I do think he put in the work. I mean, he was always.
No, definitely. He put in the work. Like people who think because people underneath him were doing like a lot of stuff, it's like you don't understand the risks involved with like being even just a spokesperson of a company. You think it's so easy, go be one.
Exactly.
You know why there aren't like a spokesperson for every huge company? It's fucking hard. It's really hard to be good for that long, especially with him,
I think he's going to have a fabulous, obviously we know biopics are amazing. He's going to have a fabulous biopic. That his story is really, really, really interesting, really cool. And just to tackle what T-Kun sent a previous message. About a couple of months ago, Stan Lee was in the news because he was very elderly, very sick, and his accounts were being mishandled by his carer. Now, again, this is something that can happen with your, wealthy people that are being cared by family, friends, or even relatives, or even, lawyers and stuff like that. They can be abused. And it was just 2 months ago, it was publicized that he finally got away from someone who was really controlling his life. It was really sad. You would think, it didn't look like he was sad, but he was tweeting, help me and stuff like that. So it was a big deal. And it's nice to know before he passed, he did get his family in control. He was in control. And that was what T-Kun originally sent. And then a month or two later, he actually passed, which is now. And, it's cool that he was back in control of his assets and stuff like that. And his I think his daughter came out to say that his last moments were, well, not his last moments, his last months or something where he was happy. We don't know exactly what it was like when he died. He was very ill, very, very ill. But, his family was in control. He was in control. And, he lived to 95. So I'll start by ending that on saying
Excelsior.
And I will play the second clip, which this is a testament to what I was talking about him as a marketer, as a promoter, and as an interviewee. Stan Lee was pretty damn funny. So let me play this clip and then we'll wrap this part up, because apart from my little spiel there, I don't know if you have any more to say after I play this clip or not.
Go for it.
92 years old, still CEO of the company, still making cameos. What keeps you going?
Greed, probably, mostly. No, it's fun. I like working with guys like you. I like working with people with a sense of humor and people who enjoy what they do. I enjoy what I do, and I don't enjoy interviews. I mean, this will be hell. We're going to set interviewing back a few decades.
Why don't you enjoy it?
But other than that,
Come on, you always
in an interview, sometimes I have to listen to your question. I want to be doing all the talking, but you keep interrupting me with questions.
Are you in all Marvel movies?
No, I'm not. I wasn't in the Fantastic Four movie, and I wasn't in one of the X-Men movies. Sometimes they shoot them too far away, and I can't go halfway around the world just to do a cameo, even though I know the public wishes I would.
What did you think of Ant-Man?
I thought it was wonderful. I just love everything that Marvel has done. They've taken the things that I created, and they're making them look better than ever, and I'm getting the credit for it, and they're doing all the work. It's the greatest situation.
Did you like Paul Rudd?
Oh, he was great. I like them all. And if I didn't like one, I wouldn't admit it, because it would be bad to do in an interview.
But the Ant-Man was funny, too.
Oh, yes. The humor is an integral part of so many of these stories.
All right, the new Fantastic Four didn't do great and got a couple of bad reviews. How did you take that?
Well, it was probably because I didn't have a cameo in it.
That's the reason.
They didn't discuss the story with me. But I haven't seen it yet, so I really can't comment about it.
Why wouldn't you run and see it?
I don't run to see anything. I mean, I walk jaunty, jolly, as Mel Brooks would say, and I just get there eventually.
Some people are complaining that they reboot these things too quickly. They make them over again fast.
That may be true. I don't know. I have a little problem. I don't see that well or hear that well anymore. When I go to the movies to see these things, I see figures moving around on the screen. I can't quite tell what they're doing. I can't understand a word they're saying. So then I go home and I ask my friends, hey, did you see that movie? What do you think of it? And if I ask enough people, I finally find out what it was all about.
If you can't see well, and you can't hear well.
In fact, I don't read well. I have a bunch of notes here for the interview. I can't see them. I don't know what they say.
Okay, so that was one of his best.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
One of his best interviews with Larry King. It's obviously was done 3 years ago. So it was 3 years. It was 92 at the time. So, but you can tell how spry, how tongue in cheek, how self-aware he is, and he's very honest. To be honest with you, he makes comments about how he's just laying on his levels and getting those royalty checks. And every interview I found of him, he's very affable and just open, and that's the kind of face you want for Marvel. He's very true. It just seems very genuine to me. He just seems very, very genuine, and I think that's hard in Hollywood and celebrity. And for someone who doesn't have to do shit, he really doesn't. He's still out there doing interviews. And when Larry King asked him about Fantastic Four, the abysmal remake with Michael B. Jordan and Miles Teller, he just said, I ain't seen it. The guy asked him, are they remaking this shit too much? He said, maybe. He was honest. He could have just said, oh, I don't know. He just honest, because, I really do appreciate that. And you can get that from Stan Lee a lot in all of his, look, and the last thing I will say is, if you go on YouTube and just put in Stan Lee, he's that consistently going to Comic-Cons, even at his age. Let me tell you something, man. You think I'm going to be going to a fucking Comic-Con past 70, past 60?
Dude, you can't even get me to go to Comic-Con now. It's like, if we hit it big and they're like, you gotta go to Comic-Con, I'd be like, can I go every other year?
Exactly. And this guy was doing way more than he should have, and he's getting paid. He didn't need to, but he was a true, if anything, he looks to me like a true lover of not only his craft, but the art itself. And obviously, it went bigger than him, because he interviewed and said, Marvel, it was just like a job for me at first, and I was just writing the stories. But when it became animated shows and graphic novels and audiobooks and the whole MCU cinematic universe, just getting to watch your art flourish and morph and gravitate to something so grandiose. I mean, it's amazing. I'm sure that alone makes him feel fulfilled as an artist. But I'm just putting words in his mouth. But oh, and shit, man. You know what? I really feel bad. Stan Lee is so cool, and this is really sweet. I just read today that he actually made a posthumous tweet. He actually wrote like something for all the fans, because he knew he was passing, and it was a very heartfelt one. You know what I'll do? If I can get someone to read it, I'll edit it in here.
Again, the fans love your sense of humor. and you know, it's
Well, it's an equal love fest because I love my fans. I cannot tell you how much I love my fans. Sometimes at night I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, what's it all about, you know? And then I get a letter from a fan, or I read something, or I see something, or I remember something, and I realize it's so lucky to have fans who really care about you. And that's the reason I care so much about the fans, because they make me feel so great. And there's something, if you think about it, that is wonderful about somebody caring about you as I care about them, whom you've never met, who may live in another part of the world, but they care, and you have something in common, and occasionally you contact each other. And this business of fans, I think, is terrific. And I love them all.
Yeah, man, Stan Lee, man, I appreciate what he did, but personally, to me, personally, wasn't a super true believer. I just appreciate the man and his craft and his attitude in finality of him.
Hard not to like him.
Yeah.
Excelsior!
So, Stan Lee, man, rest in peace, rest in peace. See you in the heavens. I think someone said that, you know, when you make superheroes, when you make these fictional characters, you live forever. And I think he will live in history forever. He created something that will live forever. And it is at the height of pop culture and even social awareness. So what he created is definitely a trendsetter, definitely a history maker. And he lived a goddamn long life. I don't think I'm going to live to 95, so...
Man, I'd be surprised if I made it like to 70.
Please leave another message at voiceofmail.com.